Good morning. We have another question today, and it's a really, really pertinent one. The question is, how do I hear my truth? And it gets so complicated, especially for people who are sensitive. And let me give you a timeline on what this would look like. Imagine you as a young child who is very, very sensitive to truths. You may notice that you now are sensitive to what is right and what is wrong, what is true and what is not true, deep within your stomach, deep within your heart. You have a certain feeling where you know you can hold on to that and trust it. And another one when it's your head convincing you that it's true or not true. So, what has happened over time is when you were little, you were taught to disregard that feeling of knowingness over what people outside of you have been telling you. And in long term, you begin to start overthinking and second guessing and sometimes even becoming anxious. This is one of the seeds of anxiety, is when the world outside isn't matching with what you feel on the inside. Another seed to anxiety would be, and I'm talking origins, because people are not born with anxiety. I'm sorry. It is something they learn. So I know I've gotten a little far off field, but the guides want to talk about this. They want to talk about how people create the seeds of anxiety. And the basic answer is when the understanding that you personally have, the one where your senses have received information, your brain has processed that information, and now somebody outside of you is telling you that's not correct, or that what you're feeling or what you're seeing or what you're knowing isn't true or isn't right. Those are the seeds of anxiety. Another thing that that is quite noticeable for people who have trouble hearing themselves is that they tend to allow people to convince them to do things against their better interest, or they willingly and knowingly give their power to others. People sometimes call this the narcissistic, highly sensitive interaction. It's not always the case. It could be just all people are more important than you. That's another thing that's learned. So how do we counteract years of training and listen to our truths? Well, let's start with people outside of you. That's who you honor, are people outside of you. And the guides are saying that if you want to understand how to hear, have a person ask you a question and you do a knee-jerk answer just from your truth and understanding without knowing anything about the situation. Don't use your brain. Use your truth and understanding ability. And you'll notice how effortless it is for you to see that truth. And they want you to notice where it is in your body that you feel that truth and how you hear that small whispering for somebody else. You may notice you do this all the time. People come to you for answers that you literally know nothing about, and yet you have these answers. So notice where that comes from, because it is equally as strong and powerful for yourself. But in order to maintain sanity, at some point in your life, you turned it off for yourself, and therefore you caused anxiety. All right, they want you to, yes, there's two things. There's one, is some people are very good at this, where they disassociate themselves from themselves. And what we mean by this is that have someone ask you a question as if it were not about you, and just do your knee-jerk reaction and hear what you say. That's one way to understand your truth, with a helper. Have somebody who knows you and loves you and would hear you speak your truth and know that it's truth. Because when truth sounds, human ears can tell truth from untruth. It's only when you listen to the words that you're convinced otherwise. This is true. It's the timbre, it's the place from which the body, the voice comes from. It is it's the feeling you get when you hear the words. Sometimes there's visual cues. Sometimes there's eye cues, social cues. But mostly it is within the ear and you hear the vibrations of truth. I'm just going to tell you that right now. Now, how do you hear this within yourself? As we said, you go back and have somebody ask your questions as if it's not about you. And then when you start getting better, here's a fun thing. When you have a decision, and then they're saying that they had me do this when I was first learning to hear my truth, because my truth was turned off years ago. So if you have a decision to make, a decision that you believe is important to you, and you just can't work it out here, what is the right way to go? Should I stay or should I go? Is this right or is this wrong? This type of deep question. So what they're saying is, write your two opposites, or three if you have three opposites, on a simple card and put it face down on a table. Look away, shuffle it around, leave the room for hours or a day, go to work, come back home, and intuitively walk over and pick up the card. The universe will hand you the answer. Now, if your brain gets involved, you'll instantly knee-jerk and say, what about this? What about that? What about this? Notice that is what they're saying. That's where you're derailing yourself. That's how you're creating second guessing. So, in this time, if you choose to honor the first truth, the voices and knowingness will come back willingly and gratefully, because they have been trying to speak your whole entire life. They're asking, have you ever done something and then say, I knew that, I should have known that, I knew that was about to happen, and yet you blindly did it at the time? But we would like to submit that it wasn't blind. You did this with a knowingness of disregard for yourself. And this is the pattern of not being able to hear your guides or not being able to hear your truth. It is a constant pattern of disregard for yourself over the words and actions of others. It's very simple. They're also saying that there is a strong need sometimes for you to believe, because this is what narcissists do. They give you something you truly, truly want, wrap it in a package of looking like you really, really want it, have you believe in the idea of it or the thought of it rather than the reality of it. A good example would be a woman who loves a man best when he's away, but when he's around, they fight and fuss. That's a good one. That's because you love the idea of the man. You don't necessarily maybe love that man. Okay, they're talking fast. Stop talking so fast. To unravel this, always stop yourself. Take a deep breath if you begin to second guess yourself. And just like many people say, and you have done in the past, I'm not going to think about this right now. I'm going to focus on something else just for a minute and give it a rest. Just take a break and then come back later. Your truth wants to come to you. It is merely your fears that are preventing it. It's a lifetime of training that says other people are right and I am wrong. I suggest you go back to the video in Healing in Your Timeline and see if you can find the precise moments where that occurred. It doesn't matter what happened, it only matters when it happened. And you ask yourself to go to the time and the place and have it. There's a whole video on that. So please look it up. If these videos are helping you, if you're getting some enjoyment from this, please like and share and invite your friends. I do mail these videos out to my mailing list every day. I do, if you send me an email, I will answer your question, as long as it is not a personal question, like, does my boyfriend love me? Or when will I get married? Those are not the questions the guides are interested in. They're interested in questions that will help the group. So thank you so very much for listening, they're saying. And they're also saying, we love you and we care about you. Bye-bye. I hope this helped. Bye.